When you think of royal heirlooms, you picture glittering crowns, legendary swords, maybe a palace or two. But history's attic is filled with the stuff they don't put in the official tours. We're talking about the truly bizarre, the bafflingly pointless, and the downright hilarious junk that monarchs insisted on passing down through generations. Today, we're skipping the crown jewels and digging into the royal family's secret hoard of 44 of the most ridiculous heirlooms ever collected, cherished, and fought over in history. 1. Kicking things off with maybe the most awkward family heirloom of all time, we have Napoleon Bonaparte's personal staff. After the little guy with the big hat passed away, the doctor performing the autopsy apparently decided to snag the emperor's manhood as a take-home souvenir. From there, this shriveled piece of history went on a world tour of weirdness, passed between collectors like a hot potato nobody really wanted to hold. It was even displayed in a museum for a bit, probably looking like a forgotten piece of beef jerky. Imagine being the person who inherited that. You can't display it on the mantle, and it's a heck of a weird story to explain at a dinner party. It's less a symbol of power and more of a cosmic prank on a guy who tried to conquer the world. 2. Peter the Great of Russia wasn't just a czar. He was also your worst nightmare, an enthusiastic amateur dentist with absolute power. He owned a terrifying set of pliers and believed he was doing everyone a favor by offering unsolicited dental services to his courtiers. If he saw a tooth he didn't like, out it came, no questions asked. The most ridiculous part is that he wasn't just a menace, he was a collector. He saved every single tooth he violently yanked, creating a cringe-worthy collection that still exists. This was the ultimate HR nightmare. Imagine trying to hide a toothache from your boss, knowing his solution involved rusty tools and zero anesthetic. 3. The French King. Louis XIV lived in the Palace of Versailles, a place so fancy it makes mansions look like sheds. Naturally, his bathroom routine was an event. He had a royal chamber pot that was basically a jeweled throne for his backside. But the real kicker wasn't the pot, it was the guy whose job it was to handle it. The groom of the stool. And get this, it was the most prestigious job in the kingdom. Noblemen would practically duel for the honor of being the king's official bathroom attendant. It gave them exclusive one-on-one time with the monarch. It was the ultimate way to climb the social ladder, proving that in politics, sometimes you really do have to start at the bottom. 4. In old-timey England, when a royal baby was on the way, they didn't have baby showers, they had the groaning cheese. This was a colossal wheel of cheese made when the pregnancy began, acting as a 9-month dairy-based countdown clock. When the mother was in labor, or groaning, people would carve off pieces for good luck. But the truly bonkers part came after the birth. They'd hollow out the center of this massive, smelly cheese wheel and pass the newborn baby right through the hole. Yes, the first major life event for a future royal was being ceremoniously shoved through a piece of cheese, presumably to bless them with a life of dairy-filled prosperity? 5. As King Henry VIII aged into a grumpy, oversized monarch, he needed a cane to get around. But this is Henry, a man who never did anything halfway. His walking stick was basically a ridiculous multi-tool of kingly convenience. First, it was a cane. But wait, there's more. The handle also concealed a hidden flask because you never know when you'll need a royal swig of something strong. And if that wasn't enough, it was also a weapon with hidden spikes. So it was a mobility aid, a personal bar, and a pointy stick all rolled into one. It was the perfect accessory for a man whose hobbies included getting married, eating a lot, and making everyone around him very, very nervous. 6. Not all heirlooms are sparkly crowns. Sometimes you just inherit a really unfortunate face. The Habsburgs, a major European dynasty, were so obsessed with keeping power in the family that they just kept marrying their cousins. The result was the legendary Habsburg jaw, a genetic trait that gave them a comical and debilitating underbite. It was passed down for generations, becoming more pronounced with each inbred monarch. Some of them could barely eat or speak properly. It's like a family tradition nobody asked for, a permanent built-in reminder that maybe, just maybe, you should expand your dating pool beyond your immediate family. 7. Giving a baby a rattle seems normal, but a royal baby's rattle was an exercise in absolute absurdity. Forget plastic. These things were often made of solid gold or silver. They were heavy, ornate, and about as practical as a chocolate teapot. Now, just picture handing a heavy metal club to a tiny human who has zero control over their limbs. It was less of a toy and more of a beautifully crafted concussion delivery device. It was also decorated with things like coral, which they thought would ward off evil spirits, but probably just gave the baby something hard and weird to chew on. It was the perfect gift for the baby who has everything, including a high risk of denting the throne. 8. Queen Victoria was the queen of sentimental, and sometimes just plain weird keepsakes. When her daughter lost her first baby tooth, Victoria didn't just pop it under a pillow. Oh no, she treated that tiny piece of dental history like a world-class diamond. She immediately commissioned a royal jeweler to mount the tooth into a fancy gold brooch shaped like a thistle. She created a piece of high fashion out of something that most people would quietly throw away. It's the ultimate example of royal extraness, turning a normal, slightly gross childhood moment into a glittering family heirloom that was probably very confusing to look at. 9. When it comes to bizarre keepsakes, it's hard to top the alleged last breath of King George III. Yes, you read that right. The story goes that as the king passed away, a quick-thinking attendant supposedly captured his final exhale in a glass jar and sealed it up. This is the ultimate prove-it heirloom. What do you even do with it? You can't open it to check, because then it's just a jar of regular non-royal air. It just sits there on a shelf, a container of invisible history. It represents a level of memorabilia collecting that has gone so far, it's looped back around to being absolutely nothing at all. Talk about a conversation starter with no follow-up. 10. Queen Alexandra, wife of King Edward VII, had a limp from a childhood illness. So she wore mismatched shoes with one thicker sole to walk comfortably. But this was the royal court, where copying the monarch is the #1 sport. Soon, noblewomen all over London started intentionally limping and demanding their shoemakers create mismatched shoes for them too. It became a full-blown fashion craze. Imagine a whole ballroom full of perfectly healthy ladies faking a limp just to be trendy. It was the most awkward and physically inconvenient fashion statement in history, all because nobody wanted to be seen walking normally. 11. Mad. King Ludwig II of Bavaria was basically a real-life Disney prince who really wanted to be left alone. His prized possession was a ridiculously ornate, gilded sleigh decorated with golden cherubs and fancy carvings, pulled by 4 white horses. But this wasn't for parades. He used it to take solitary rides through the snowy mountains at night, often in historical costume. He built the most spectacular ride imaginable, a true fairy tale machine, and then used it to ghost his own kingdom. It's the most extravagant and beautiful way to say, "Please, nobody talk to me." 12. The Vasa was supposed to be the Swedish king's ultimate naval heirloom, the biggest, baddest warship on the seas. It was decorated with hundreds of golden sculptures and packed with cannons. On its maiden voyage in 1628, the whole city came out to watch. It set sail, caught a light breeze, tipped over, and sank in the middle of the harbor in front of everyone. After years of work and a fortune spent, it lasted about 20 minutes. It's the most magnificent failure in naval history, a floating monument to bad planning. It's the historical equivalent of spending $1 billion on a rocket that immediately tips over on the launch pad. 13. Queen Mary's dollhouse isn't a toy. It's a fully functional miniature palace that makes real houses look shabby. This thing has running water, electricity, working elevators, and even a tiny, fully stocked wine cellar with actual drinkable wine in miniature bottles. Every book on its tiny shelves is a real book written by a famous author of the day. They went to such absurd lengths to make it perfect for dolls who would never appreciate it. It's the ultimate expression of having way too much time and money, and deciding to spend it building a luxury home for inanimate objects. 14. In medieval times, some kings believed they were so special that they could cure diseases just by touching people. This led to the tradition of giving out royal touchpieces, special coins given to the sick during a ceremony. People would line up for hours, suffering from skin conditions, hoping a quick pat from the king would magically heal them. It was the ultimate home remedy, except your doctor was a guy in a crown whose only medical training was being born into the right family. It's a powerful reminder that for centuries, the best healthcare available was basically a royal high five. 15. We think of Queen Elizabeth I as a powerful and proper monarch, but her personal letters show she had the sharp tongue of a seasoned comedian. These weren't just boring state documents. They were filled with savage burns, witty put-downs, and glorious, high-class insults aimed at her rivals and incompetent advisors. Reading her mail is like discovering a secret royal burn book. She could command an army, run a country, and still find time to verbally dismantle anyone who annoyed her with the fanciest language imaginable. It's an heirloom of pure, unadulterated sass. 16. Peter the Great was on a mission to modernize Russia, and he decided that beards were the #1 enemy of progress. So he instituted a beard tax. If you wanted to keep your facial hair, you had to pay up. In return, you got a little metal token as proof you were a beard haver in good standing. Imagine the absurdity. You've got government officials running around measuring beard lengths and collecting taxes on them. This little token wasn't just currency. It was a receipt for your right to have a face that wasn't perfectly smooth, a small metal symbol of a very, very weird government policy. 17. When you're a king but also a toddler, your parents have to get creative. For one young royal, this meant a custom-made, child-sized suit of plate armor. Picture a kid who's still figuring out how to walk, waddling around like a tiny metallic penguin. This wasn't a costume. It was a fully functional, battle-ready suit of armor for someone who probably still needed help cutting his food. Was he planning to lead a charge against the other kids in the royal nursery? It's the most extreme example of overprotective parenting in the history of the world. 18. In the wild world of religious relics, few were as sought after or as strange as the holy foreskin. Yes, this was considered a genuine holy artifact, and for centuries, various churches and monarchs claimed to own the real one. It was treated with the utmost reverence and was sometimes given as a supremely holy gift between royal families. The sheer fact that this was a legitimate, highly prized heirloom passed among the most powerful people in Europe is a testament to how truly bizarre the past could be. It was the ultimate you-had-to-be-there artifact. 19. If you wanted to give your sweetheart a romantic gift in the 18th century, you might give them a lover's eye miniature. This was a piece of jewelry, like a brooch or a locket, containing a tiny, beautifully painted portrait of just your eyeball. Not your whole face, just one single, disembodied eye staring out at the world. It was meant to be a secret, intimate token of affection, but let's be honest, it's just plain creepy. Nothing says "I love you" quite like a piece of jewelry that is constantly, silently watching. It's the most endearingly unsettling romantic gesture of all time. 20. In the 1820s, the ruler of Egypt wanted to impress the king of France, so he sent him a giraffe named Zarafa. This living, breathing diplomatic gift had to walk all the way from Marseille to Paris. The journey turned into a national spectacle. The whole of France went absolutely wild for this tall, spotty creature. Women started wearing their hair in towering giraffe-style updos. Zarafa became the biggest celebrity in the country. It was a diplomatic masterstroke, proving that sometimes the best way to win friends and influence people is to just give them a really, really weird animal. 21. The skull of Sultan Makwawa is an heirloom born from a grudge. After the German army defeated the African chieftain, his skull was taken as a trophy, but his people never forgot. Decades later, during the negotiations for the Treaty of Versailles after World War I, they made a very specific demand. "We want our chief's head back." It was literally written into the treaty. After a long search through German museums, the skull was finally found and returned. It's one of the few heirlooms in history that was reclaimed not with a battle, but with paperwork and international diplomacy. 22. Being the king meant even your most embarrassing medical problems became a matter of national importance. When Louis XIV developed an anal fistula, the resulting surgery was a huge deal. The king survived, and everyone was so relieved that the specialized surgical tools used for the procedure were preserved with pride. These weren't hidden away in shame. They were treated like treasured artifacts. They became a weird clinical heirloom celebrating the successful medical treatment of the royal backside. It's a strange way to commemorate a victory, but a victory nonetheless. 23. Empress Cici of Austria was famous for her stunning beauty, and her most prized feature was her hair, which was so long it reached the floor. Her daily hair care routine was a ritual that took several hours. When strands of her hair were collected from the brush, they weren't just thrown away. They were meticulously saved and sometimes woven into keepsakes and jewelry. People would receive these hairy trinkets as a special favor from the Empress. It was a way of owning a piece of her legendary beauty, even if that piece was just a collection of her shed hair. 24. History is full of pampered royal pets, but few had a collar as direct as the one found on a dog at the ruins of Pompeii. The jeweled collar was inscribed with the words, "I am Caesar, I belong to the king." It's the most straightforward and bossy dog tag of all time. There's no phone number, no cute name, just a bold declaration of ownership by the most powerful man around. This dog didn't just have a master, it had a monarch. It's a small, shiny heirloom that tells you everything you need to know about the status of royal pups. 25. King Louis XIV believed you could never have too much of a good thing, especially when it came to walking sticks. He didn't just have a cane, he had a collection of over 2,000 of them. These weren't simple wooden sticks. They were ornate, diamond-studded, jewel-encrusted works of art. He had a different cane for every outfit, every mood, and every day of the week. It's a level of accessory hoarding that is truly mind-boggling. His collection of canes was probably worth more than a small country. 26. The Faberge eggs were the ultimate Easter present for people who had everything. The Russian czars started a tradition of commissioning these ridiculously opulent, jewel-encrusted eggs every year. Each one was a unique masterpiece that opened up to reveal a tiny, intricate surprise like a miniature golden carriage. They were essentially the most expensive and elaborate Kinder Surprise toys ever made. The Romanovs collected 50 of these things, each one more over the top than the last, creating a family heirloom collection that was pure, glorious, and completely unnecessary luxury. 27. Most people throw out old cake, but not the British royals. A slice of Queen Victoria's wedding cake from her marriage in 1840 was perfectly preserved, probably thanks to the high alcohol content. It has survived for over 180 years, sealed in a box and passed down. It no longer looks appetizing, of course, but it's still technically a piece of cake. It's an heirloom that's both a sweet romantic gesture and a slightly gross science experiment. You can look at it, but you definitely wouldn't want to eat it. 28. The Stone of Scone isn't a jewel or a crown. It's a boring-looking block of sandstone. But for centuries, the kings of Scotland, and later England, were crowned while sitting on top of it. This magical coronation brick was so important that kings fought wars over it. It was stolen, hidden, and fought over for 700 years. Imagine starting a conflict not for gold or land, but for the official royal seating cushion. It's the most important and most fought-over piece of rock in British history, proving that when it comes to royal heirlooms, sometimes it's just a really special chair. 29. The Stewart sapphire is a massive, gorgeous gemstone that's now part of the British crown jewels. But one of its previous owners, a Scottish king, had a very practical, if not sacrilegious, idea. He wanted to wear it all the time, so he just drilled a hole right through the middle of the priceless, ancient sapphire and wore it as a pendant. It's the royal equivalent of putting a bumper sticker on a Ferrari. Later, jewelers had to cleverly hide the hole in the crown's design. It's a shiny reminder that even kings can have moments of shockingly bad judgment. 30. When you want to give a gift to the Queen of England, a box of chocolates just won't cut it. During a visit to Fiji, Queen Elizabeth II was presented with a tabua, which is a polished tooth from a sperm whale. In Fijian culture, this is one of the highest symbols of respect and honor you can give. So while it might seem like a strange and slightly alarming gift to outsiders, it was actually a profoundly meaningful diplomatic heirloom. It's a good reminder that the definition of a treasure can be very different around the world. 31. Balmoral Castle in Scotland is the Queen's private getaway, but it has one quirky problem: bats. For generations, the royal family has engaged in a peculiar tradition of catching the bats that get inside the castle. They don't use exterminators. They use official, long-handled bat-catching nets. The staff and even members of the royal family will run around the grand hallways trying to gently catch the flying creatures in nets and release them outside. These nets have become a quirky, functional heirloom, a symbol of a very specific and very strange royal pastime. 32. Catherine de' Medici, the Queen of France, had a reputation for being a master of political intrigue. She also owned a personal poison cabinet. This wasn't just a simple box, it was a piece of furniture filled with hidden compartments and secret drawers, allegedly for storing her collection of toxins and antidotes. Whether she actually used it for dark deeds is up for debate, but the fact that she owned a piece of furniture specifically designed for sneakiness tells you everything you need to know about her personality. It was the ultimate accessory for a queen who always liked to have a secret plan B. 33. When Richard the Lionheart died, he had some very specific instructions for his body. He wanted his body buried in one place, his heart in another, and his entrails in a third. His heart, a symbol of his courage, was mummified, placed in a lead box, and entombed separately in the Cathedral of Rouen. It was treated as its own special relic. For centuries, this royal organ was a treasured heirloom all by itself. It's a slightly gruesome but powerful example of how medieval royalty viewed the body not just as a whole, but as a collection of symbolic parts. 34. The Papal Golden Rose is the ultimate good job award from the Pope. It's a solid gold sculpture of a rose bush, blessed by the Pope himself, and given to pious Catholic royalty as a sign of special favor. Receiving this golden flower was a huge deal, the spiritual equivalent of winning an Oscar. It was a physical, glittering confirmation that you were on the Vatican's good side. This heirloom wasn't passed down through a family, but passed out by the head of the church to his favorite monarchs, making it one of the most exclusive and holiest trinkets in Europe. 35. The Roman Emperor. Caligula loved his horse, Incitatus, so much that he treated him better than most people. He gave the horse a stable made of marble, an ivory manger to eat from, and even a jeweled collar. The barn was more luxurious than the homes of most senators. Caligula supposedly even planned to make the horse a consul, the highest political office. This stable wasn't just a home for an animal. It was a monument to an emperor's eccentric affection, the most opulent and ridiculous barn in the history of the world, built for a horse who probably just wanted some better hay. 36. One of the oldest and most prestigious chivalric orders in England is the Order of the Garter. Its symbol, a cherished heirloom given only to a select few, is a fancy leg garter. The story goes that a lady's garter fell off at a royal ball, and the king picked it up and put it on his own leg to stop people from laughing at her. It's a whole knightly order, with a history spanning centuries, based on a potentially embarrassing wardrobe malfunction. It's a noble, sacred tradition that is, at its core, all about a sock holder. 37. In the bizarre world of royal education, some young princes had a whipping boy. Since you couldn't punish the prince directly, this other boy would take the physical punishment for any mistake the prince made. The job came with a strange heirloom, the official stool the whipping boy had to kneel on. This simple piece of wood was a physical symbol of one of the weirdest jobs in history. Imagine your only role in life is to get in trouble for someone else's bad grammar. It was a tough gig, but at least you got your own designated piece of furniture. 38. Royal cabinets of curiosities were the original museums, filled with all sorts of bizarre objects from around the world. A popular and completely fake item was the Fiji mermaid, which was usually the top half of a monkey sewn onto the bottom half of a fish. Royals and nobles would pay a fortune for these creepy, cobbled-together creatures, proudly displaying them as real mermaids. It was a treasured heirloom of total gullibility, a testament to the fact that even the smartest and richest people can be tricked into buying a fish monkey. 39. The Roman Emperor Elagabalus was a teenager with absolute power, which is always a recipe for chaos. He was a notorious prankster, and one of his favorite gags involved prank cushions. These were early versions of whoopee cushions designed to make a rude noise when an unsuspecting dinner guest sat down. Imagine the most powerful man in the world finding it hilarious to prank his formal, toga-wearing guests with fart jokes. It's proof that some forms of humor are truly timeless, and that even emperors can have the sense of humor of a 10-year-old. 40. The imperial crown of Byzantium was one of the most sacred and valuable objects in the Christian world. But when the empire was broke and needed to fund an army, desperate times called for desperate measures. The emperor pawned the crown to bankers in Venice. Imagine having to take the single most important symbol of your entire empire down to a cosmic pawn shop to get a loan. It's the ultimate example of being house rich and cash poor, but on an imperial scale. They literally had to trade their crown to save their kingdom. 41. During the construction of the Great Pyramid, the Pharaoh Khufu had a massive 144-foot-long ship buried next to his tomb, intended to transport him in the afterlife. It was sealed in a pit for over 4,000 years until it was rediscovered in 1954. After being painstakingly reassembled, this ancient vessel, the world's oldest intact ship, was essentially gifted to the world as a diplomatic heirloom, a stunning piece of history from the dawn of civilization. It's a boat that waited 4 millennia for a voyage it never took. 42. In Brussels, there is a famous statue of a little boy, well, relieving himself. It's called the Mannequin Piss. Over the centuries, visiting royalty and dignitaries started a tradition of gifting the statue tiny, custom-made outfits. He now has a wardrobe of over 1,000 costumes, including little military uniforms, traditional outfits, and even an Elvis costume, all sent from world leaders. This statue's closet has become a massive and very strange international heirloom collection, making him the best-dressed and most publicly inappropriate statue in the world. 43. King Mithridates VI was so terrified of being poisoned that he dedicated his life to creating a universal antidote. He would allegedly take tiny amounts of various poisons every day to build up his immunity and experimented with a recipe that contained dozens of ingredients. His secret formula for this Mithridate became a legendary heirloom, a mythical cure-all that physicians and kings tried to replicate for centuries. He was so successful in his anti-poison quest that when he was finally defeated and tried to take his own life with poison, it didn't work. 44. On the eve of the Russian Revolution, Tsar Nicholas II didn't travel like a normal person. He had a personal armored train that was essentially a rolling palace. This land battleship was a self-contained world of luxury, with opulent sleeping cars, a dining room, a chapel, and even a bathtub, all protected by thick steel plating. It was a mobile fortress designed to keep the royal family in their bubble of comfort, completely disconnected from the reality of their crumbling empire. It was the ultimate heirloom of a dynasty that was, quite literally, about to go off the rails. From Napoleon's most personal artifact to a giant cheese used as a baby slide, it's clear that royalty had a very different idea of what was worth keeping. These weren't just objects. They were statements of power, eccentricity, and sometimes just plain terrible judgment. So, here is the question for you. If you were a high-ranking noble at Versailles, would you take the job of groom of the stool? You'd be handling the king's jeweled chamber pot every day, but it would guarantee you immense political power and wealth. Be honest, would you trade your dignity for ultimate influence? Let the debate begin in the comments. If these stories rearranged your understanding of royalty, show some support with a like and subscribe for more historical madness.